Part 107. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1072. A few minutes later. Yilin and Oda Mai are done. The insidious treasure chest turned into a tentacle monster, which was chopped into pieces. It stretched and wriggled like a bug on the slippery ground covered with mucus. It was no longer as powerful as when it first jumped back. Walk. No need to explain, Oda Mai knew from the moment the treasure chest became abnormal that Yiren's appearance was not to snatch the ancient talisman. She nodded, sheathed her swords, and followed Yiren away from the place. The ancient ruins are as large as a small city. After throwing away the group of monsters that came upon hearing the sound, Yilin and Mai Oda hid in a ruins room with a large hole in the ceiling. The two of them were sitting in the middle of the room, back to back, sitting on the floor. There is something special about this posture, and it is not just about relying on each other for comfort. Mere walls simply cannot provide enough safety protection. The two of them leave each other's backs to each other. While resting to recover their spiritual energy or physical strength, they can react immediately no matter what kind of danger arises. The atmosphere was slightly awkward. This Oda dance is not the Oda dance Yilin knows, and many topics are impossible to talk about. After being silent for a full hour, Yilin found a topic: I will teach you how to distinguish between a real treasure box and a mimic demon pretending to be a treasure box. It's actually really easy. There are certain marks on the real treasure chest, such as scratches, moss, the remains of poisonous jellyfish, etc. The treasure chest transformed by the mimic demon is very new. After encountering it a few times, many undead can see the difference between the two when they get closer. It is not a very mysterious method. Of course, Yilin planned to sell a favor and increase Oda Mai's favorability. No need. Oda Mai shook her head, interrupted Yilin's next words, and explained why she didn't need to. I will cut the box first. As expected of you. So how many ancient talismans do you still need? 3. Okay, I will help you find it as long as I can keep my own safety. Oda Mai turned her back to Yilin, and her breathing rhythm changed slightly. There's no need to refuse in a hurry. I've already said that on the premise of ensuring my own safety, I'll help you look for it by the way. Besides. Yilin paused for a moment, and there was a hint of lightness in her voice. Helpless, if I'm not wrong, more than 90% of the next treasure boxes will be mimics. Oda Mai thought about it for a while, but still couldn't figure out the reason, so she asked, why? Yilin picked her forehead. It's just a reasonable guess based on the change curve of my own talisman finding efficiency, plus a little rational empathy, and I came to an obvious conclusion. It's really too obvious, it's so obvious that I find it boring. Click. Oda Mai pursed her lips, and she subconsciously shook the knife at her waist, making a crisp sound of metal collision. I don't see anything obvious about it. I don't know why she should feel that this annoying way of speaking should be chopped to death, but listening to this man's words, she always felt a strange feeling, as if there was an area in her heart that she didn't understand. Was touched. Yilin did not dare to continue playing riddles, and explained concisely, in the first 6 hours, I easily found 10 treasure boxes, 4 of the 10 treasure boxes were talismans. In the following 24 hours, I found 20 treasure boxes. There are only 4 talismans among the 20 treasure chests, and then until the previous treasure chest where I met you, I opened 34 treasure chests before I opened the 9th ancient talisman. By the way, tell me straight, according to what I know about you, you probably don't have the patience to touch the treasure chests one by one. How did you get your 7 ancient talismans? Oda Mai bowed her head and remained silent for a while, then answered honestly, find someone, hack to death, and rob him, find someone again, hack to death again, and continue to rob him, continue killing, continue to hack to death, and then rob him. To sum it up, it can be summed up in 3 words: find, kill, Rob, reread without thinking. In the darkness, Yulin showed an expression of "it's not what I expected" and suddenly said, "Sure enough, instead of working hard to grab the treasure chest, wouldn't it be easier and faster for people like you to just kill people and steal the talisman? So, according to my reasoning, it is very likely that most of the talismans in the ruins have been touched." Oda Mai nodded, "I understand." She really understood now. Next comes the mutual killing session that everyone loves to see. As for the empathy mentioned by Yulin, there is no need to say more. The sneaky treasure hunting model obviously does not conform to the bad taste of above. Assume that 100 elite undead are dropped into the ancient ruins. Each undead needs 10 talismans to complete the task, so in order for this mission to be sufficiently interesting and gambling, the number of ancient talismans must be far less than 1000. Obvious. Yulin and Oda Mai are hiding here now to rest as much as possible and recover before the other surviving undead react. Missions above level 80 are no longer what they used to be. Without the resurrection coins, the undead's action mode will change from crazy to insidious, cunning, cautious, and suspicious, and this change does not happen overnight. Some undead souls will still search tirelessly in the ruins, trying to avoid conflicts with other undead souls as much as possible, and they will react. It turns out that the amulet is gone until the undead fight for the amulet and a large-scale chaotic killing situation breaks out. Rest time is precious. The two were silent in the darkness. No more talking. Only each other's breathing and heartbeat constitute each other at this moment. Call. At this moment, Oda Mai breathed a sigh of relief. Actually, I hate dark places. When Yulin heard this, she became interested. Oh. That's weird, I really don't know. Why? In the past, Oda Dancer didn't talk much and would never take the initiative to bring up his past. Oda Mai lowered her voice and said in a distressingly calm tone, "My father, Oda Hanyu, is a shady underground profession. He is in charge of a gang called Oda Club Organization. I remember, one night, under the order of my father, the nanny took me out to play somewhere. We played until very late, and she didn't take me home until I was very sleepy. I remember very clearly that that night, there were no lights on at home, and there was no sound at all, not only my father, but also my mother." When Oda Mai said this, she stopped talking without continuing. But Yulin had already guessed the ending of the story. He felt deeply ashamed of his interest just now, and he said seriously, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked." Oda Mai shook her head, "It doesn't matter anymore. Everything has passed. Later, the master took me in. My master was Miyamoto Geniki. In my mind, he was the strongest swordsman. He later taught I practice swordsmanship. Every night, I dare not sleep, or even turn off the lights. I turn on all the lights in the house, very bright. Maybe only in this way, I will not think of them. After the master found out, he taught how I overcame my fear. He said that I can sleep with my knife in my arms at night. If I feel scared in the dark, I will cut out what I think is the sharpest knife at the place that scares me. He said that the most powerful thing a person can do in a desperate situation is the sword that emerges is enough to conquer all darkness, fear, hesitation, and confusion. Later, I was no longer afraid of the dark. I just felt it was simply annoying." After Oda Mai finished telling her story, from an angle that Yulin could not see, the corners of her mouth curled up in a subtle arc. "You know, once, I had a strange dream. In the dream, I killed many, many red people. The evil ghost in my eyes, I was seriously injured, and in a dark room, I applied medicine to myself." Yulin was stunned. He didn't know what Oda Mai meant by this strange dream. He didn't think it was interesting anyway. Oda Mai continued, "I remember that in that dream, there was a strange man who killed ghosts with me. I remember that it was him who turned off the lights in the house for me. When I woke up, that dream the details have become very blurry, but I have always remembered that man's eyes very clearly. His eyes were very quiet. It was like the eyes that my master looked back and smiled at me when he put the knife in its sheath. Sorry, I rarely talk so much. I don't know why, but you remind me of the person in my dream. Etc. Yilin was stunned. This dream that Oda-mai had was clearly. After Oda-mai finished speaking, she stood up and put her right hand on the handle of the knife casually. She frowned slightly and looked in a certain direction outside the room. Somebody is coming. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1073. Oda-mai shut her mouth. Holding the two swords, he was about to rush out. Yilin held down my Oda. He put his index finger up to his mouth, shh. Oda-mai. Shuzi blocked her from killing people, which was a heinous crime. But she was held down obediently. Do not know why. In the dark. Yilin showed a warm smile. This smile seemed to be the white moonlight shining in the endless darkness. He raised 3 fingers and began to count down silently. 3, 2, 1. Boom. When Yilin pressed down the last finger, there was a violent vibration and an explosion outside the house. Do it? Oda-mai looked at Yilin in surprise. On the way here with Yilin, she didn't even notice that the man secretly planted the trap. As expected of that military advisor. Even though he seemed so powerless against the Knights of the Apocalypse, he was still the mainstay of the Legion of Order, insidious, cunning and unmatched. It is said that although the Fox back then had weak frontal combat capabilities, it had full life-saving skills. The two of them jumped out of the hole in the roof. In front of the dilapidated hut, a flashing formation was triggered on the ground. A fat man with a round body was standing in the center of the formation with a ferocious look, his limbs tied tightly by the red whip-like electric current. Crimson Chain is Yilin's common spell. Improved from the Supreme Style spell. It consumes little and has strong binding power. It can be used as a trigger trap or to draw people. It is extremely cost-effective. The fat man struggled hard while being bound by the dark red chain. He looked at a masked man standing on the roof and a woman holding a knife, and his heart skipped a beat, secretly thinking that he was about to suffer. Grass. Fallen into a trap. I'll fight you. Burn. Fat. Golden flames burned blazingly on the surface of the fat man's body, like an angry fire. His size was shrinking visibly to the naked eye, and his fat body turned into rock-hard muscles in an instant. The fat man's long hair was like flames, twisting in the wind on the top of his head. His eyes were red and he let out a deafening roar like thunder. The next second. Boom. 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 The crimson chains that bound the fat man were broken. He crushed the ruins with one foot and rose into the sky with the force of the earthquake. But his next step was not to fight for Yilin and Oda-mai. After breaking free from the chains, he ran back without looking back. Oda-mai was about to chase after her, but Yilin held her back with a tired tone. Oda-mai looked back. Yilin shook his head slowly. Behind the mask, his eyes looked helpless. Forget it, don't chase after poor bandits. It's not surprising to encounter familiar friends in the undead mission. This is why Yiren deliberately wore a mask. At least, when he really wants to kill someone, he won't show any mercy. One of the reasons for letting Li Erpang go is what Yilin said, don't chase poor enemies. Second, Yilin is relatively familiar with Li Erpang's ability, which is an extreme close combat type. He has 2 forms. The fat form can increase defense, and the fat burning form can turn defense into attack. It is very difficult to fight in a duel. And since Li Erpang did not hesitate to start burn it, fat, it is better to use it to escape. If it is wasted here, it will most likely attract other monsters in the ancient ruins. The two of them continued walking forward. Take a few steps. Oda-mai suddenly asked, your friend. Yilin did not deny it, it used to be. Boring. Oda Mai curled her lips, but in the end, she didn't say much. Everywhere in the ruins gradually became lively. Many undead have begun to realize that the treasure chests that can unlock ancient talismans have been opened. The rest are all mimics. Many people began to form teams like Iron and Mai Oda to look for the lone undead. Ba Xiao Yang found the target. There are only 2 people. High in the ruins. There are more than 10 undead people gathered illegally. One of the undead has large eyes that protrude outward strangely, like a frog. At this moment, his strange eyes were shining brightly like 2 light bulbs, staring down at Oda Mai and Yiren, who were walking cautiously through the ruins 1,000 meters away. Just 2 people. Although Henry Zhang has gathered a group of friends, this group of people is not gathered randomly. They each have their own specialties. They are not good at fighting alone, but if they form a team, they can work together to form a good fighting force. Quickly, share your vision with me. Henry Zhang sneered, and his teammates gently pressed their hands on Henry Zhang's temples. In an instant, Henry Zhang got his teammates super long-distance vision and took the faces of the 2 people into his eyes. Seeing this, Xiao Yang shrank and cursed, It's him. Brother Yang, have you met an enemy? Another undead man carrying an axe sneered. Don't ask questions that you shouldn't ask. Henry Zhang turned around and glared at the other party, and the undead man carrying the axe immediately closed his mouth. He. It is true that life is full of narrow roads, and we must meet each other when we should meet. Although after the 80th floor, the resurrection coins are useless. But in the Xingxiang bar of the dead, after Henry Zhang drank a glass of rest in peace, he sent it where he was, and the relationship was finally settled. Henry Zhang has never lost such a big person in his life. Revenge must be avenged and kindness forgotten. This is Henry Zhang's consistent code of conduct. He clearly remembered that a long time ago, he had a brother who died. They survived the most difficult years together. But one day, his brother was drunk and revealed that he wet the bed as a child as a joke at the wine table. Henry Zhang smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, we are brothers." Then a month later, Henry Zhang found an opportunity, stabbed his brother in the back, and sprinkled hot urine on his shocked face. So, even if he drank that glass of wine and lost a mere resurrection coin, it was no big deal, but Henry Zhang just couldn't swallow this breath. After the 4 towers descended and the 4 nights of the apocalypse wreaked havoc on the world, bringing war and disaster to the world, Henry Zhang gritted his teeth and fought all the way to the later stages. He always felt that he should be the protagonist of this world. Even if he dies now and enters the world of the dead, he is still confident that he is the only one who can leave hell alive and be resurrected. In this case, as the protagonist. What's wrong with being arrogant? So what if I'm a little domineering? Which protagonist in the novel is not willing to take revenge, be both good and evil, and be chaotic and neutral? This is the kind of persona that a protagonist halo should have. Marquis Liu, who claims to be the commander of the Legion of Order, is full of benevolence and morality, and acts above board. He is eager to tell others that he has upright views. The more Xiao Yang sees this kind of person, the more he dislikes him, and he has long wanted to find an excuse. Instead, "Brother Yang, can't we get up?" Henry Zhang slapped the face of the undead who said such stupid words with such force that several bloody teeth were knocked out in the ruins. "Are you stupid? There are 2 out of 10 and you still ask me if I can make it? I'm just saying this to you. You will be the last to score the talisman that I will grab later." The undead was knocked to the ground, blood was pouring from his mouth, but he did not dare to say anything. Yilin and Mai Oda are waiting in the ruins. The danger in the ruins not only comes from the ruins themselves, but also from the undead that survive in the ruins. It seems like we're being targeted. Yilin moved a little closer to Oda Mai, and her cold breath blew into Oda Mai's earlobe. Oda Mai suppressed the urge to draw the sword and asked, "Where?" "Don't look around. Just listen to me quietly and act like you don't know. Yilin kept walking, squatting down from time to time, touching here and there, then returned to Oda Mai and continued the previous topic. After a little confirmation, the opponent should be a group, with teammates with abilities such as visual specialization, which is currently beyond the range of my perception. Oda Mai nodded. From now on, you follow me and only step on the places I have stepped on. Don't step on the places I haven't stepped on. Otherwise, you accidentally touch a place you shouldn't touch. Don't blame me for not notifying you in advance. You don't worry, you'll be able to cut it later. Good. Oda Mai agreed enthusiastically. Yilin crushed the cards, hid the destruction and redemption in her sleeves, and silently began to accumulate power. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1074. Yilin made a lot of arrangements. Oda Mai followed closely behind. The night is as dark as ink, and the colorful plants provide a faint light. Looking around, it looks like a sea of stars. More than a dozen undead, ripples in the air, approached silently. One undead continued to use his skills to create platforms in the air, and the other undead stepped on the platforms and moved in the air. Coming. Henry Zhang's team entered Yilin's perception range. He looked into the air with a bit of surprise. Looking at the ferocious face behind the team, Yilin was angry and laughing at the same time. Why is it you again? Henry Zhang. This is the lingering ghost. Back off. Yilin quickly retreated, raised her hand and fired. The bright light is like a laser cannon, with 20 layers of powerful charged bullets stored up, piercing the long night. Boom. The charged bullet after charging can no longer be described as a mere gun. It is a cannon, and it is a powerful shot. Boom. In an instant, the three people who had time to dodge in mid-air were pierced by the cannon at the same time. Their chests, abdomen, and heads exploded into empty blood holes. Hiss. The power of this shot was so terrifying that gasps of cold air could be heard from Henry Zhang's team. The movement of Yilin's shot not only stimulated Henry Zhang's team, but also was like a big stone falling into a calm lake, activating all the dangerous elements in the ancient ruins with a bang. Groups of monsters, filled with poisonous jellyfish, are coming here one after another. Quick victory. He lost 3 teammates at the beginning, which did not bring much sadness to Henry Zhang. Rather, in Henry Zhang's eyes, teammates were used to sell and serve as shields. This can be seen from Henry Zhang's position. Even when forming a team to attack the duo of Oda Mai and Yirin, Henry Zhang habitually stands among his teammates to prevent unexpected events. A dark short blade was taken out from Henry Zhang's waist. He smiled evilly and, dozens of meters away from Yilin, he lightly slashed in front of him. Careful. When Yilin saw Henry Zhang's movements, his eyelids twitched, and before the knife fell completely, he suddenly took 10 steps back. A dark crack appeared where he stood half a second ago and disappeared in a flash. Grass. Henry Zhang, who was thinking that he would kill with one strike in mid-air, was instantly dumbfounded. How did he know his hidden killer move? Everyone who has seen this move is dead. Including Henry Zhang's former teammates. No, Xiao Yang realized after a while that in the world of the dead, there are all dead people. Among the huge number of undead, there were a group of undead that died under Xiao Yang's move. There were quite a few. It seemed that information about his abilities has been leaked. No wonder the masked man's voice sounded so familiar. It turned out that I had killed him before. No wonder. Henry Zhang quickly found a reasonable reason why Yilin could predict in advance and easily avoid his ultimate move. Even if Yilin couldn't hear Henry Zhang's thoughts, seeing the other person's eyes widening and wanting to swallow him in one mouthful, He could guess what the other person was thinking by thinking with the skin of his feet. It's nothing more than this is impossible, Masaka, hallucination, ridiculous, there must be something fishy and other excuses used by villains to seek psychological comfort. Nonsense, Molly died due to this weird skill back then, and Yilin was deeply impressed. The 8 guys who could appear as the 8 shadows back then all had abilities that far exceeded the average level of the apostles. The Henry Zhang in front of him came from another timeline. Yilin knew his abilities very well. After avoiding Henry Zhang's killing move, Yilin raised her other hand. Boom! Another ray of light pierced the sky. This shot has a full 30 levels of power. The arm-thick light shreds everything. This shot was originally intended to be aimed at Henry Zhang, but Henry Zhang was too cunning and used his teammates as a shield. Yilin's shot penetrated 5 of Henry Zhang's teammates and illuminated most of the ruins. Little bits of light and dust gradually disappeared. Falling. Landing. It doesn't match the intelligence. The other party turned out to have 2 guns. After Henry Zhang was tricked into drinking a cup of rest in peace in scent of the dead and his attributes were not improved, he immediately went to inquire about the revolver maniac as he was determined to retaliate. Yilin is a man who has killed more than 300,000 people, and his information is no longer a secret in the undead circle. He has long-range control skills, owns a powerful revolver, likes to stab others in the back, and so on. But what Henry Zhang didn't expect was that he actually hid a gun. Why are you paralyzed so insidiously? Half of the 15 teammates he brought were killed by the opponent in just one encounter, but it didn't matter, they had the upper hand in terms of numbers, and Henry Zhang was confident that the opponent could dodge his one strike but not his second. Since he was good at it, it is inevitable that the undead who fight at a distance will be relatively weak in close combat. Land. Find cover. Be careful with the opponent's control skills. According to the intelligence, the opponent's control skills should lock the target with sight. Kill them quickly before the monsters surround you. The brothers landed happily. The next second. Boom 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 boom. A series of blasts. He blew everyone's hair back. Oda Mai was depressed along the way. Yilin was not happy either. Unexpectedly, Henry Zhang ran away. Although Yilin no longer hates Henry much in her heart, since they have met, there is nothing wrong with settling the accounts that should be settled. You don't keep your words. Oda Wu's eyes were shining coldly, staring at Yilin's back. She was referring to the promise, I'll wait until you cut me off. I can't help it. How did I know that he would run away so decisively and leave a group of teammates there? Yilin turned around, picked his forehead, spread his hands and said, and the movement was so loud, it pissed off a group of monsters. If you continue to chase me, you and I will probably get involved, so it's not worth it. Oda Mai took a long breath and moved away the hand that was tightly pressing on the knife handle. Yilin also breathed a sigh of relief. He knew very well that the Mai Oda in front of him was not the Mai Oda he knew. There was no friendship at all between the two, it was a purely cooperative relationship. If she was upset, it was not impossible for her to raise her hand and slash her face. Well, let's talk about it next time we meet. Sooner or later, we will meet, in the killing field at a higher level. Yilin said, throwing the ancient talisman he had just taken out from the corpse of Henry Zhang's teammate to Oda Mai, and advised, this map is not suitable for fighting. If you have enough talismans, just leave. Just now the number of monsters that surrounded me because of my shooting was about 50% less than I expected. If I guessed correctly, there were also varying degrees of competition going on in other places in the ruins, and more than half of the undead had already left. If you stay, your chances of becoming the target of monsters will skyrocket. Oda Mai silently accepted Yiren's kindness. She clutched the 3 amulets tightly and stared at Yiren. Well, you can buy me a drink later and we'll be settled. I'll order the most expensive one. Hearing this, Oda Mai hesitated for a moment and nodded. The next second, she chose to complete the mission. A black beam of light fell, and Oda Mai left the mission. After Oda Wu left, the surroundings became completely quiet. There was no wind, no monsters, only scattered poisonous jellyfish, swaying in the air as the vines spit out. "Aren't you tired after following me for so long?" Yulin suddenly said something to the dark corner not far away. Swish swish swish. The sound of footsteps came from behind the ruins wall, and Li Erpang stepped out of the shadows. "To be honest, even if your size has shrunk now, you are not suitable for sneaking into stalking," Yulin said. In the astonished eyes of the other party, he gently placed 5 talismans on the ground, and spread his hands to indicate that he had not done anything small. "You don't have to be wary, I have enough talismans, I can always use them. Leave, I won't gain anything by burying the technique in place." With that said, Yulin swiped her finger up and selected complete the mission and return in the pop-up interface. A dark beam of light fell and disappeared. Li Erpang's eyes were fixed on the 5 ancient talismans on the ground. The dark beam of light just now made it obvious that the other party had left. But you can only believe what the undead said. Li Erpang picked up a stone and threw it there. As expected, no trap was triggered. Now he is like a frightened bird, frightened after being deceived. "Don't you think that you can make me owe you a favor just by helping me once? You want to take advantage of me?" Li Erpang muttered, while raising his legs to carefully explore the path. It took him a full 30 seconds to reach the 5 talismans at a distance of only 10 meters. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1075. Yulin returns to the realm of the dead. He calmly watched the bloody flames burning in the light pillar. The flames formed the font, faithfully recording his performance in the trial. In the hardcore killing mode, after completing the tasks of each level, the number of levels will be forcibly increased. Yulin enters the 81st floor. As in the past, the practice of getting stuck on a certain level to earn points like a bug is no longer feasible in the hardcore killing mode. But the benefits are obvious. The rewards are very generous. Return. Welcome back to the land of the dead. According to the performance in the task, the points obtained are at 7,638 points. The current total points are 139,653 points. You have reached the 81st floor. Performance evaluation grade for this task, S. Strength add 0.3, Agility add 0.3, Spirit add 0.6, Will add 0.1, Luck minus 0.1, Charm minus 0.1. Get additional rating, Average. Attention, 89.3%. There are still 24 hours until the next mandatory mission. Looking forward to your next performance. The light spots merged into Yulin's body. He clenched his fists and moved his hands and feet, feeling the changes after the attributes were improved. Is this reward too generous? Yulin didn't feel happy about this. Instead, he became increasingly pessimistic about the next task. Because this exaggerated improvement is not enjoyed by him alone. As long as they can survive mission after mission, each undead can improve its corresponding attributes. If there is no misconception, starting from the 90th floor, the mission mode will undergo another earth-shaking change. That is, the real climax of the resurrection of the dead. Those who can survive the big waves, or the cruel killing like raising worms all the way to the 90th level, each level is a trial that can improve attributes. Then these 10 trials will give people the courage to participate in the hardcore killing mode. The undead brought about a terrifying leap forward improvement. After reaching the 90th floor, when Yulin retrieves the last Apostle Core data fragment, there will be an arena for monsters. After the undead attributes are updated, Yulin pondered her panel. The last missing parts of him are, first, the laughing mask that exists as a parasite, and second, his bloodline. The spiritual attribute has re-entered the legendary level. Now in the mission, Yulin has never met any other legendary undead except himself. This panel of his, at the same level, is very likely to be a supermodel. It's hard to feel too much pressure. No, there should be. Yulin thought of the mysterious feeling lingering on Gu Tianqing. He has never underestimated anyone. Gu Tianqing is mysterious and mysterious. Yulin has never seen his limit since he met Gu Tianqing. If it is Gu Tianqing, he pretends to be himself after breaking through to the legendary level. It is not surprising that he is a weakling with extraordinary spiritual side. Gu Tianqing. Yulin sat in the deserted junction, thinking about the name Gu Tianqing. After a while, Yulin decided not to think about it anymore. The power of human beings is small. Yulin is now in the center of a whirlpool, deeply involved in a gambling game. He does not know much about the methods and content of the game above, and it is difficult for him to predict the future based on the existing information. Towards calculation of the future cannot be based on speculation, and neither can God. Now Yulin can only place her hope of leaving here on the entrance of Green and the opportunity that Green said. Although this passive situation makes Yulin feel very aggrieved, Yulin has no other choice. Other methods. When she was bored, Yulin turned over and over to study her own panel. After entering the hardcore killing mode, his two attributes, charisma and luck, which he had no luck with, fell to 0 as usual. There is only one step left to break the lock in reverse. Yulin achieved the reverse lock of luck many years ago with the help of the Lancer's Blessing item, and realized the strengthening ability of Echo of Doom. Yulin is now more curious about what kind of qualitative changes will occur after the charm value is reversely broken. Well, Yulin is looking forward to that moment. 24 hours of leisure time is very tight. Yulin took the time to visit the town of the dead. Inside the bar, Oda Mai had been waiting there early. Without saying a word, she ordered the most expensive drink for Yulin, saying that she wanted to repay Yulin's favor and that the two of them didn't owe each other. "Oh, my dear friend, I didn't expect you to be alive." Wu Lulu spoke in an emotional tone, making it hard to tell whether she was disappointed or happy. Oda Mai watched helplessly as Yulin and Wu Lulu sat side by side and mocked each other. "To be honest, it's really hard for me to understand how you can get along with it when you look so annoying." After Wu Lulu deliberately left to give the two of them some time alone, Oda Mai drank a glass of dark rotting water that was as black as ink in one sip and looked at Yulin curiously. The charm of people cannot be generalized. Yulin boasted about her charm very proudly, but at the same time, she quietly watched her charm value return to 0 and was silently sad. "Just you." In Oda Mai's impression, this guy is not the type to be liked at a glance. Etc. In my memory. Why is there this impression? A strange sense of instant vision came to her heart. Oda Mai lowered her head and frowned, struggling with the strange feeling. Anyway, it's more about the skill of getting along with others. No one knows how to, get along with others better than me. Yulin held the cup carefully and looked around for a while. They have all entered the hardcore killing mode. If Wu Lulu suffers from convulsions, give him a glass of poisonous wine similar to Rest in Peace. After one sip, he will be dead, and there will be no possibility of resurrection. However, out of trust in Wu Lulu's uprightness, Yulin did it anyway. Hoo ho ho. Yulin's eyes began to hurt violently. It was obvious that he had drank the wine from his mouth, but the alcohol's strength began to erupt from his eyes in a strange way. Covering her eyes and lying on the table in pain for a long time, Yulin groaned. Finally, Yulin got over it, but the only drawback was that she did not receive attribute bonuses from this wine tasting. But Yulin doesn't care, this kind of random reward is not 100% guaranteed. Risks and benefits coexist, which is normal. Even though there is no prophet, Yulin and Otamai have long been accustomed to the wine of the underworld prepared by Woolulu. This is a unique taste that cannot be encountered while alive. In Woolulu's words, Woolulu's reputation as bartender from hell is not in vain. In fact, a long time ago, Otamai raised her own doubts about the issue of Woolulu's wine. Why can Yulin drink so happily? Yulin replied at the time, only pain and suffering can make me feel more like I am alive. Otherwise, we who are struggling in hell will be no different from the walking dead. Anyway, we're settled. There was a bit of fatigue in Otamai's eyes. After she paid the bill, she walked to the edge of the fragrant wall of the dead. Before leaving, Otamai paused and said to Yulin with the back of her head, if you are in the mission in the future, if I meet you, I will not hesitate to hack you to death. After saying that, Otamai left. Woolulu is back online. Tisk, 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 smack, smack, smack. It moved the flesh of its eyes up and down, squeezed, and made strange onomatopoeia. Woolulu, please speak human language. Don't make such a misleading sound. Besides, that's not how eyes are used. Woolulu took out a clean handkerchief and wiped the bone wine glass left by Otamai. Human beings are a hypocritical existence. Even you can tell. Yulin put her right elbow on the bar and lazily tapped her forehead with the tip of her index finger, so, she really doesn't know how to speak harshly. After the other drinkers left, Woolulu lowered her voice, my dear friend, Woolulu, have you really thought about it clearly? Accept the invitation of that one and become a dependent. You will truly gain eternal life and be with your weak and decaying body a final farewell. Here we go again. Since that cup of rest didn't kill him, Woolulu advised Yulin whenever she had time to abandon the light and turn to darkness, turn back to the shore, being a human being has no good, etc. These words made Yulin's ears tremble. It's cocooned. Yulin rolled her eyes, I refused a long time ago, and now it's too late to regret it. No, my dear friend. Woolulu conjured up a small envelope like magic. I saw it solemnly place the envelope on the bar. My dear friend, you still have a chance, to become a god in your human cognition. The envelope was exactly the same as the envelope Green had swallowed in his dream. The dark envelope had a white skull stamped in sealing wax. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1076. In Woolulu's words. This opportunity was obtained by finding many acquaintances and spending a lot of connections. Woolulu used her hands and feet and Ludanian to explain for a long time, and Yulin understood. As long as she opens the envelope and makes a choice, Yulin can become a god. Of course, gods and their qualities cannot be generalized, but Woolulu vowed that as long as she joined the camp of that one, she would have the hope of becoming a god. In the words of you humans, we are gods, but in fact, it is not the same thing. Woolulu explained, your world is a ship, and the ship sails in the source sea. You the ship sank. My dear friend, Woolulu, believes that you, with your extraordinary wisdom, can choose to get a bigger ship. Yulin stared at the letter and remained silent. Woolulu thought Yulin had changed her mind, so she followed her lead, patted Yulin's shoulder, and touched her around. This is different from the invitations you have seen in the border area. Woolulu's eyes filled with red tears. The name of those tears is sadness. My dear friend, this invitation was sent by Woolulu personally, and you will become Woolulu's vice captain, and together with Woolulu, conquer that charming land. Sea area. Yulin looked at Woolulu in surprise. He never expected that this letter was a little different from the previous one. From the few words Woolulu revealed, Yulin could tell that Woolulu's existence should be at the same level as Xiao 11 and Auranos. They are all captains and they control a world. The invitation sent by Woolulu was not for Yulin to become a dependent of the Knights of the Apocalypse, but to become a dependent of Woolulu. Even the status is much higher than that of the dependents. It's the deputy captain. If Woolulu is a god, then as long as he opens this letter and makes the yes choice, Yilin will become a demigod-level existence in one fell swoop. Is there anything wrong with this analogy? In other words, Woolulu gave Yilin the opportunity to easily become a demigod who was only a fraction shorter than Xiao 11 and Auranos. Yilin remained motionless and completely fell into silence. Are you excited? Yes. His heart moved. Everyone wants to live. Including him. It would be a lie to say that I am not moved. His ship sank. Zioxy also sank. So, is there nothing wrong with him changing a boat? Nothing wrong. Makes sense. But, is this really good? Yilin closed her eyes. Woolulu helplessly spread her hands. My dear friend, you don't have to make a decision so quickly. But you must make a choice before entering the 90th floor. This is your only chance. It seems to really regard Yilin as a friend. A god. An undead. With such a huge disparity in status, Woolulu was obviously really distracted. It felt that it was particularly close to Yilin, so it tried every means to win this opportunity. Woolulu knows some inside information, and it also knows the nature of the undead. It was not exaggerating. In its opinion, Yilin upheld the ridiculous pride of human beings and refused the request of that one. Even if Woolulu could not empathize, she could understand. But this letter was different. It was an invitation from Woolulu. It was inviting Yilin to board its ship and become its vice-captain. From the perspective of other captain-level beings, this is an incredible thing. I will think about it. Yilin did not accept the letter, but solemnly said to Woolulu, no matter what I choose in the end, I will repay your kindness, my friend, Woolulu. Yilin returned to the realm of the dead. He sat quietly in front of the light pillar, waiting for the countdown to end. The bat appears. Yilin was once again dragged into a dream. Green's dream has reached an unpredictable level, and Yilin has no idea when she fell into Green's nightmare. I didn't expect that there would be such an interesting guy in that rotten and stinking waterway. It's a pity. Yilin couldn't tell, but he knew that the Green in front of him must exist in a dream. Only in this way can Green's cheating not be detected by anyone. Several interesting points emerged in Green's evaluation. Rotten stench, interesting, pity. Interesting should refer to Woolulu, and what does unfortunately mean? Who feels pity? Yilin didn't wait to ask questions. Green yawned, I'm hungry. Yilin bounced off the cold ground. He had another dream. About Green's dream. The countdown ended and Yilin entered the killing field again. Floor 81. In a flash of light, he came to a blank room. There are 4 doors in the room. Yilin was stunned. This scene looks familiar. It seems that I met him at a very low level. Shouldn't it be that simple? Yilin already knew how to deal with that task. These tasks are not random at all. If Yilin really believes that these tasks are randomly selected, then he deserves to be tricked to death by the gods. Therefore, in order to make the viewability high enough, Yilin will never be placed on a map that has been cracked by Yilin. Really? A different unfolding began. Hints began to appear in front of Yilin's eyes. Welcome to the surprise room. This is the 81st floor. You read that right, this place looks very familiar to you. Yes, you have been here before. There are 100 surprise rooms in total. All rooms are safe houses, there will be no danger except yourselves. You can choose to open the door, or choose to wait where you are. You can choose to open the door and experience the surprise of meeting, or you can choose to wait where you are and become a surprise for others. Mission completion conditions: kill 5 people. Currently surviving undead, 100 people. Looking forward to your performance. Yilin pondered the rules of the mission. The rules are simple, even rough. There are 100 rooms, and every undead participating in the mission is located in one of the rooms at the beginning. In this mission, the undead can choose to actively open the door to encounter, or wait in the room for other undead to open the door and come in. If it is used as a battlefield, this room seems a bit narrow. A small room of only a dozen square meters, let alone the mental side, even the strength side or the agility side can attack any corner of the room with just a few movements. So assuming this is the gameplay, squatting in place must be more advantageous than actively opening the door. Just wait and see, everyone knows the truth. So Yulin used the free method, and he arranged a little surprise such as 2 heavens of ice and fire on each of the 4 doors. After the arrangement was completed, Yulin sat in the center of the room and waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 10 minutes. No one has pushed through the door yet. Yulin was not surprised by this. He did not rule out the possibility of hidden rules, but for now, just from the literal point of view, it is not possible to conclude that squatting in place is safer than opening the door actively. It's hard to figure it out. But Yulin felt that things would not be that simple. Until 20 minutes. One of the 4 doors opened a gap. Coming. Yulin opened her eyes, a little excited. But the next moment, the scene suddenly changed. A small, empty room with 4 walls stretched infinitely into the distance. Blue sky, white clouds, rolling sand dunes, hot temperatures, and dry air. His room turned into an endless desert in an instant. Not only that. Yulin raised his head in surprise. The moment the scenery inside the room turned into a desert, he could clearly feel that the 4 small traps he had set were refreshed in an instant. Yes, refresh, the trap he created is not destroyed or obliterated, it is more like a feeling of being refreshed in place with a swish. Is this a surprise? Yulin picked her forehead and just teleported. Yulin thought it was no big deal. The view on the desert was wide, and 10 kilometers away, a girl holding a knife quietly opened the door and entered. The girl's knife has long been unsheathed, and the bright red blood is falling on the hot sand along the tip of the knife pointed downward, and faint white smoke is emitting from it. After the girl entered the room, the door she entered behind disappeared. In the other 3 directions, in the empty scene, there is a white door. This is the surprise. Yulin squinted her eyes and looked at Myota, who was walking towards him quickly step by step, feeling helpless. Coincide? Absolutely not. Perhaps it was because the fight between him and Myota was more enjoyable and entertaining from the above point of view. Oda Mai's movements seemed very slow, but in just 1 step, she crossed 100 meters and moved forward in the desert as if she was flashing at close range. Her eyes were empty, unable to see any emotion. It seems we have quite a bit. Before Yurin could finish her last word, Oda Mai interrupted Yurin's opening remarks with the word knife expressionlessly. She slowly sheathed the long blood-stained sword and assumed an IAI stance from a distance. Death Song. Pulling out the sword as quickly as possible, a thread as fine as a hair suddenly lit up in front of Yulin's eyes. This line started with Oda Mai's sword and ended with the sky behind Yulin, splitting everything she could see into 2. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1077. It seemed that Myota only swung 1 sword, but in an instant, dense knife marks crisscrossed and formed a grid, passing behind Yulin. Behind Yulin, the undulating sand dunes were cut into pieces, and the quicksand passed away. Due to the destructive power of Oda Mai, rivers of quicksand seemed to appear on the desert, flowing at high speed in different directions. Yulin's body was also cut into pieces. But Oda Mai didn't feel happy about it. Because she knew very well that this man was not so easy to deal with. Really? The moment after Oda waved his sword, iron appeared strangely on the desert one by one. Freedom of la mirage. Countless phantoms, standing, lying, or walking. Different phantoms, some are pensive, some are hesitant, some are melancholy, some are rippling, some are smiling. Thousands of phantoms walk towards Oda Mai step by step at the same time. I think we can talk. Different voices converged into one. Yilin was making her final struggle. No. Oda Mai was obviously determined to kill him. She kicked her foot, suddenly exerted her strength, and struck out with both swords at the same time. The light of the sword in the sky was more dazzling than the blue sky and white clouds and the scorching Sunday. Oda Mai's sword was not confused at all, and it was a killing move as soon as it was struck. The phantoms were shattered one after another, but immediately after, more mirages stood up from different places, in an endless stream, and endlessly killing them. Are you sure you want to delay time in this way? Mai Oda chopped the hundreds of phantoms in front of her into pieces with a knife, and sneered, if you think that just like this, you can exhaust my physical strength, you are too young. It's up to me. Really, suddenly, the light and shadow around Oda Mai were distorted. Yilin came to Oda Mai silently. He gently pressed the handle of Oda Mai's knife with his hand and smiled, but your knife, no murderous intent. Roll. Oda Mai slashed at Yilin's hateful smiling face. The smile shattered, but I didn't expect that this was also a phantom. Oda Mai's face darkened, she pointed her swords at the ground, and she was seriously thinking about the next countermeasures. As an opponent, Yilin's slippery mental side is obviously the type that Oda Mai hates the most. He can't be cut, he can't be killed by chopping, and he also likes to taunt his opponents by jumping around. But Mai Oda did not give up. Like a tireless machine, she swung her sword at the phantom of Yilin, who kept standing up and giving away people's heads. But Yilin had no other tricks except this mirage move. More offensive moves? One was cutting and the other was hiding. The two of them chased and chopped in the desert for nearly 2 hours like hide and seek. 2 hours later, the desert scene is already in pieces. Under Mai Oda's knife, there are cut marks all over the place. The cut sand dunes surge into the cracks, forming patches of quicksand valleys with uneven pits. The anger in Oda Mai's heart grew stronger and stronger. Perhaps Oda Mai herself couldn't tell the difference. At first, due to various reasons, she really couldn't kill Yilin, but as these 2 hours of useless work passed, Oda Mai was now really aroused. Huo wanted to find this man out and chop him into pieces to vent his hatred. Yilin, who was bowing his head, was hacked to death. Sit ups in the desert, hacked to death. Those running in the desert, hacked to death. Oda Mai couldn't even remember how many styles of Yilin she had chopped off. She wielded the knife numbly for 2 hours, which made her mentally exhausted, but also angry. Etc. Is that apparition yawning? Oda Wu was stunned for a moment, and then without saying a word, she came to Yilin, who was yawning with a knife in hand, and sneered. Hee hee, hee hee, hee hee. Oda Mai knew that her smile at this moment must be very underworld and not in line with her usual character, but she just couldn't help it. Yilin looked at Mai Oda, who was approaching with a knife in a sneer, and her heart skipped a beat. He knew that he shouldn't yawn, because none of the other phantoms yawned, only he was yawning, and he was obviously different from the other phantoms. Exposed. Careless. But I can't blame him. Watching Oda Mai chase the phantom in the desert for 2 hours, it was too boring. Well, I think we can still talk. Yilin spread her hands. The smile on Mai Oda's face faded, and she raised the sword expressionlessly. EY-. Just when Oda Mai was about to unleash the evil fire on Dam Yilin, the door in the distance opened with a shrill sound. The door is open. A tall man pushed open the door and entered. Boom. The moment he stepped into the room, the door behind him was locked neatly and firmly. Yilin. Oda Mai. Newcomer. After a moment of embarrassment, Yilin activated his skills on the new undead without saying a word. Let the world feel pain from now on. When reaching the 80th floor and up, the level of the undead at worst is extraordinary. When encountering an undead with extremely high will attribute, the quick reading version of Disaster Ridden is likely to be resisted, so Yilin doesn't say anything. He said that he would use twice the amount of spiritual power to give the unlucky newcomer a head-on blow before he even had time to ask his name. Skill hits. The strong man's brows were full of spring, and his autumn waves were rippling as he walked slowly towards Yilin. Do it. Although triggering charm at this time was extremely inappropriate, Yilin still pointed at the other party and shouted at Mai Oda. Oda Mai gritted her teeth and crossed hundreds of meters in a few steps. The sand dune behind her raised sand pillars tens of meters high under Oda Mai's explosive power. Bottomless sand pits appeared behind Oda Mai. The secret of one sword style. Death Song. The secret of two sword styles. All directions will be destroyed. One sword style. Boom. The secret of the two sword style. Two sword style. Two swords. Knife. Profound. Righteous. She had been stimulated by Yiren for a full 2 hours, and the anger in her heart had already exploded. She could not kill Yiren, so the new unlucky guy became Oda Mai's only channel to vent her anger. Oda Mai drew the sword so fast that she was in the awkward situation of not being able to keep up with the move name. Yiren came closer with lingering fear. Oda Mai stood panting in the middle of a messy sand pit. The undead soul that had been ogling Yiren just now didn't even have time to scream under Oda Mai's knife. And became minced meat all over the place. Call. Oda Mai held the knife and took a long breath. Because she exhaled too hard, there were whirlpools in front of her. Yilin stood 10 meters away from Oda Mai. Are you comfortable? Yiren asked cautiously. Oda Mai turned her head, her facial features softened a lot. Did you already know this? Yilin nodded. I guessed it. You guessed it, didn't you tell me earlier? Oda Mai had a sullen face. Although she was feeling happy now, it was hard for her to laugh. I already said we could talk, didn't you give me a chance? The surrounding environment changed. As the undead soul was chopped to death by Oda Mai Lingqi, they returned to the small room of more than 10 square meters. It was surrounded by walls and nothing. Oda Mai gritted her teeth and stared at Yilin's innocent face. One day I will chop you to death. Oda Mai looked away and said something. Now, let's cooperate first. Oda Mai didn't answer. But she sheathed the knife. That's the answer. Actually, it's very obvious, Yilin said while being wary of Oda Mai drawing a knife to hurt someone. I just think that this kind of random small room, 2x2 grabbing one-on-one mode is a bit boring. Since even if everyone finds it boring, then the higher people will probably find it even more boring. Have you noticed that we have experienced so many missions, but there has never been a mission that was as serious as a ring, one-on-one? Absolutely not. Because although many things are not necessarily certain, the win rate is most likely linked to the panel attribute. There was one sentence Yilin didn't say. Since it is a gambling game, an arena battle in which the win rate can obviously be guessed does not fit the gamble model. Even the underground gambling bureaus in the fighting arena are trying their best to play dirty tricks. Try every means to influence the fighters on the field, bribe them, throw hammers off the field, insult them, deliberately expose them, and other methods, just to manipulate the results. Ever since Yilin knew that all this was a gamble and started to think about problems with banker thinking, many logical problems could be solved easily without any difficulty. So, since this is not a one-on-one duel, it is a melee. If it is a melee, then there is something to play. Of course, the ideal situation is to wait until most of the undead react and figure out the hidden before the rules. We could kill enough people as quickly as possible and then leave here. Oda Mai nodded. Yes, you are right. But I'm still angry. Oda Mai thought silently. At this time, the door opened behind Mai Oda. The surrounding scene changed. Wow! The sound of waves crashing on the shore came and went. Rows of snow-white seagulls fly neatly in the blue sky. One moment it was arranged into the character, another moment it was arranged into the character, and another moment it was arranged into the character. Bird. Yilin's face lit up and she stretched out her hand to catch the seagull. The seagulls screamed and were sucked by invisible hands, struggling to flow towards Yilin. They are on an isolated island. The island is bare, without woods or hills, just a bare island. A female undead came. When she opened the door, she was dumbfounded when she saw two people squatting in the room. While Yilin was happily catching the bird, Oda Mai could no longer hold back and raised her knife to kill the opponent. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1078. The room is still the same room. One is poor and the other is white, everything is clean and spotless. But 7 bodies have been swept away here. Relying on staying still and taking advantage of the 2-on-1 advantage, Yilin and Mai Oda joined forces and killed 7 people in total. Among them, 4 heads fell on Oda Mai's head, and 3 heads fell on Yilin's head. Because the undead were not even equipped with a way to communicate with each other, all the undead came in when they opened the door and saw 2 undead squatting. Their scalps were numb, scolding, cursing, and then resisting. But it is obvious that both Yilin and Oda Mai are the top ones in the circle of the undead. Let alone a siege, even if it was a one-on-one fight, they were not afraid of anyone. Now Yilin and Oda Mai joined forces to siege without any morals, and they killed people neatly and easily. After squatting for an hour, no one came in. Yilin took out the seagull that he had acquired a long time ago from his arms. He looked at Mai Oda, whose eyes were red with blood and still had unfinished thoughts, and asked, "Are you hungry?" Oda Mai hesitated for a few seconds and nodded. Yilin stared at Oda Mai's sword. "Forget it, let's do it by ourselves." Although Oda Mai's knife is sharper, it is obvious that she will never lend it to Yilin for processing ingredients. Yilin took out a small dagger, the one he usually used to release the shadow blade, and skillfully cut his throat, bled, and shaved his hair. Unfortunately, there are a few ingredients missing and the heat requirements are higher. Yilin sighed helplessly, stretched out his palm, and flames ignited on his palm. In this way, he placed the simply prepared seagull ingredients on the flame lit in his left hand and grilled them carefully. The flames on Yilin's palm suddenly grew larger and smaller, and suddenly changed into other colors. The ability to control this flame was at the expert level. Since interpreting Queen Yanluo's training manual, Yilin's free method has begun to show an obvious trend of partiality in different fields. There is nothing we can do about it. Although the Dharma of freedom has been completed, it has not been completely completed, which means that the infinite throne has no end. 10 minutes later, the light of food flashed across the room. Oda Mai was stunned. She had never seen food with special effects. The most outrageous thing is that this roasted bird has an attribute, physical energy recovery speed at 3%. The 2 of them ate the natural roasted bird meat without seasonings to replenish their energy. Is it tasty? Yilin smiled and glanced at Oda Mai. Oda Mai's cheeks were bulging. She wiped her mouth, lowered her head, and whispered, "Average. Do you usually eat so cleanly?" Yilin looked at the smooth skeleton on the floor and twitched the corner of her mouth twice. "Why didn't I notice that you were tough talking before?" Watching Oda Mai silently finish chewing the bird's claw, Yilin felt relieved. He is very confident in his cooking skills. As long as he has eaten his soul cuisine, it is difficult to be hostile. Who knows who eats it? This is not the first time Yilin has tried to make friends with food. She is not charming enough, and food come and join in. "Chop me up? Hey, for the sake of birds, are you willing to do it?" Yilin moved closer to build a relationship. Speaking of which, Xiao Wu Yilin raised an index finger. With all due respect, you swordsmen should pay attention to realm, right? Oda Mai didn't understand why Yuren would take the opportunity to bring up this topic, but Yuren's words really touched her point. She nodded, her eyes narrowed slightly, and she was a little more interested. Although the Xiao Wu I know is actually the same person as you, perhaps due to different experiences, I feel that her realm seems to be a little higher than yours. Yilin pinched her index finger and thumb to indicate this one. How much is a little bit, just a little bit? Oda Mai squinted her eyes and stared at Yilin's fingers, seeming to be thinking about how much this little bit was. But what is the specific difference? To be honest, I am not a pure warrior, so I can't describe it. Yilin's tone was very serious. He thought for a moment, trying to think of this Oda Mai and the Oda Mai he knew. After pondering for a moment, Yilin pointed out the key point. I don't know when, the Xiao Wu I knew would laugh, and she would laugh very happily. From that time on, I discovered that she wielded the knife seems different than before. Impossible. Oda Mai shook her head vigorously. She subconsciously felt that she didn't believe it. She didn't understand herself yet. Laugh. What are you laughing at? Is it too easy to laugh at your enemy's death? Isn't your smile good enough? But she shook it for a while and saw that Yilin's words were true. She didn't believe it and couldn't help asking, what's different? Yilin smiled. I think she was at the same level at that time, her sword was unstoppable. Oda Mai was silent. She was thinking. She began to believe that Yuren was not just talking nonsense. Because in this environment, there is no point in talking nonsense. It will only offend her. However, a sword that no one can stop, that is, a sword that can cut off everything. This is what her master Miyamoto Geniki said, the highest state. How was it achieved? They sat for another half hour. At this time, the room shook. The surrounding scenery changes again. The two immediately stood up from the ground and entered a state of alert at the same time. A man and a woman entered from the same door. Yilin was stunned. How can two people squeeze into one door? So what's the point of this rule? This mission has been fought so far. Because he has Oda Mai as his teammate, Yilin chose to wait for the prey to come to the door. So he really didn't know that when a door is opened, it can accommodate more than one person. Sure enough, no one should be underestimated. He can find loopholes in the rules, and others can also find the same loopholes, or other loopholes. Or it should be said that the task rules set by above deliberately left loopholes for the undead to exploit. Otherwise, where would the suspense come from and how could it attract more chips? Careful. The other party is a smart person, not a simple prey. Yilin immediately reminded Oda Mai to be careful. Oda Mai nodded. Tick-tock tick-tock. Torrential rain fell, and the dark clouds were like a pot lid, pressing down on the world. The scene in the room turned into a heavy rainforest with very low visibility. Among the rules of the undead mission, it is true that only the map is randomly generated, because only the map is the fairest variable. Yilin quickly let go of his senses and judged the danger level of the map. He soon discovered that this dense forest was just a forest. There were not even small animals in it. It was just a place for fighting. Rumble. There was a vibration on the ground in one direction. Even if Yilin didn't use her ears to hear it, the magnitude of the vibration was transmitted through the ground. Both of them could clearly see it. The puddles accumulated in the forest after heavy rain fell. Due to the continuous vibration, a circle of ripples was created. After 10 minutes, the shaking stopped. Yilin and Mai Oda had already taken the initiative to attack in the direction of the vibration when it started. Because of the loopholes in the rules, it is disadvantageous for both parties. The longer you delay in the surprise room, the top may feel that it is not interesting enough and keep adding more undead to mess up the situation. Quick victory. The two braved the violent storm and walked through the dense forest. At the moment of enlightenment, both of them were stunned. I saw an open area cleared in the center of the dense forest. A magnificent castle made of earth and stone rose from the ground. Castle has 12 arms, each holding a different weapon, and its posture is like a short, fat churro with 3 heads and 6 arms. Not good. Before the other party came in, the scene changed too quickly, and Yulin couldn't see who it was. But when Yulin saw the earth giant in front of him, he guessed the other person's identity based on his ability. It's Zhao Yulong and Yu Meng. Yulin had many entanglements with these two people in his timeline. In fact, Yulin used to be the strategist of the Legion of Order, and he knew the capabilities of many teammates in the Legion very well. Oda Mai was about to raise her sword and attack the giant. The bigger the giant gets, the more excited she becomes. But Yulin knew very well that the combination of Yu Meng and Zhao Yulong was not as simple as 1 + 1 being greater than 2. They took advantage of the change of scene to turn this place into their home stadium. Want to leave? It's too late. Zhao Yulong's laughter came from the giant's side. In an instant, the ground shook and mountains shook, and mud walls appeared out of thin air, rising from the solace of Yulin and Oda Mai's feet. Oda Wu swung his sword and chopped down walls one after another. But those walls seemed to be living things, and they were created much faster than Oda Mai could destroy them with his sword. A maze is generated. Yulin and Oda Mai were separated by a disordered wall. While Oda Wu was swinging his sword, his eyes flashed. The two swords that should have been handy at this moment were as heavy as if they were filled with several tons of fine steel. Boom! The two knife tips hit his feet at the same time, creating 2 shallow pits. Oda Mai's heart sank, and her 2 white and tender arms were bulging with veins. Even if the knife weighed several tons, she would not be unable to lift it, but the point was, this undoubtedly greatly weakened her flexibility. Clay dolls were wearing armor and wandering in the maze. Mai Oda wielded her heavy double swords and cut a dirt path through the army of dolls. On the other hand, the cooperation between Zhao Yulong and Yu Meng is indeed so flawless. What a pair of crazy men and women! Yulin closed his eyes. He noticed that Oda Wu began to move in the maze, and couldn't help but smile slightly. If it was the former, I might really end up here, but it's a pity. Yulin opened his eyes, and a ring lit up at the edge of his pupils. The ring was composed of dense numbers 1 and 0. Everything in the world is composed of reason. Even the sun, sky, wind direction, temperature, and gravity. The essence of the apostle's skills is to skip the intermediate step of understanding and use skills to direct the ability to influence reason to results. Zhao Yulong's skills after being unblocked are very high-level abilities. He can freely control the gravity around him, and even the direction of gravity. Yulin's right hand was covered with a dazzling stream of light, and he stretched forward, one by one. The invisible threads spread out around Yulin's palm. I just need to readjust the direction of gravity, it's not difficult. Saying. Yulin stepped on the void, and the heavy rain could not get within 3 meters of Yulin. He faced Zhao Yulong's shocked eyes, and as light as a swallow, he landed on the wall and looked at him. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1080. Gravity has increased by a mere tenfold. After Yulin successfully adjusted the gravity multiplier around him, Oda Mai fought in the maze and gradually became accustomed to swinging the sword under 10 times the gravity. So. Oda Mai curled her lips, neither happy nor sad. She hadn't yet realized that her thought patterns were slowly taking the shape of someone else. Mysterious truth, all directions will be destroyed. The cross-shaped sword light tore through the sky, and the falling rainstorm paused for a moment. The rain curtain was cut in half with a crash, and rows of walls collapsed. This knife incidentally chopped down the wall Yulin was standing on to show off. Yulin was speechless, looking down at Mai Oda, who was charging forward like a tank, and thought to herself, you cooperated with your teammates when they were showing off. Interesting. Zhao Yulong was startled at first, then smiled coldly and retreated in the air. Xiaomeng, evacuate. Two dark beams of light fell, and Zhao Yulong disappeared on the spot. Yu Meng, who was hiding in the castle giant, probably also left. Not long after, the castle giant collapsed and turned into a pile of rubble and soil again. In the heavy rain, only Yilin and Mai Ota were left, looking at the mess on the ground and looking at each other. I see Yilin touched his nose depressedly. He originally wanted to take the opportunity to leave Zhao Yulong and Yu Meng here so that his higher-level opponents could eliminate two of them. Unexpectedly, the opponent had already completed the task. Just step into the room because they can exit at any time. With the guarantee of complete the mission and full confidence in their own strength, their plan is similar to Yilin's, taking advantage of the convenience of beyond the rules to see if they can take advantage of this mission. When no one was killed, Ota Mai transformed into a humanoid woodcutter, expanding the clearing in the forest in a circle like a vent, and patches of woods fell down like dwarf wheat. Stop wasting your energy and complete the task first. The room is refreshed. The episode where Zhao Yulong and Yu Meng broke in just passed. Yilin is not in a hurry, as long as they are still alive, they will meet again sooner or later. At this time, Yilin remembered an incident from back then. A long time ago, an escape of the undead event occurred in the real world. If there are no accidents, the undead person who escaped from hell should be Zhao Yulong. But Zhao Yulong, which Zhao Yulong is he? Is this the Zhao Yulong who is fighting Yilin in the Resurrection of the Dead tournament? In the case of... Here comes the problem. How did he escape? If not. So in this world of the dead, is there any other space that Yilin cannot touch? There is also a Yilin, there is a Ota Mai, there is a Zhao Yulong, and unknown things are going on. Of killings. It's scary to think about it. Due to limited vision, Yilin was unable to see the whole hell and could only speculate. Yilin tried to connect all the information he knew. Next. The enemy killing efficiency of Yilin and Ota Mai plummeted. Later, there was even a tragic scene of 6 undead fighting in the same room. But after Zhao Yulong and Yu Meng left, Yilin and Ota Mai formed a team and never encountered a tough opponent again. The two of them cooperated and killed each other until the other side screamed in pain. He screamed and died. After 72 hours, Yilin and Ota Mai finally completed their missions and returned to their respective realms of the dead. Return. Welcome back to the land of the dead. According to the performance in the task, you will get add 7,444 points. The current total points are 147,097 points. You have reached the 82nd floor. Performance evaluation grade for this task, S. Strength add 0.2, Agility add 0.4, Spirit add 0.5, Will add 0.0, Luck minus 0.0, Charm minus 0.0. Get additional rating, average. Attention, 91.4%. There are still 24 hours until the next mandatory mission. Looking forward to your next performance. Yilin stared at the scarlet flames in the black light pillar, dissipating little by little, and fell into deep thought. Will, luck, charm, seemed to be stuck and unable to rise. No. After Yilin thought about it for a while, he roughly understood what was going on. The reason why attribute lock is called lock is because between the value that reaches the limit lock and the next value, there is a hidden snow interval that cannot be quantified with data. Yilin discovered a long time ago that it is not the numerical values that bring power to the apostles, but the evolution of the apostles themselves. Under the transformation of 11 Paradise, more intuitive data can be used to measure and quantify. Therefore, everyone cannot generalize about this so-called hidden snow interval. For some people, this range may be very small and they can easily enter the next level. But some people may not be able to break through this level of realm lock until death. What to do? Yilin touched her chin and began to think about it. He has already broken through the limits of strength, agility, and spirit in his three major attributes. What he lacks now is to accumulate them again. At that time, the lower limit of luck value was forcibly stepped on with the help of props. Now it seems that it is not an easy task to break through the lower limit again. As for charm value and will, forget about will. Yulin can probably guess that after will is unlocked, it will be a new ability related to defense. But he had never even heard of such an outrageous thing as charisma breaking through the lower limit, let alone it existed. He may be the first in this regard. Sprint all the way from Yulin on the 82nd floor to the 89th floor. Many missions made Yulin feel like ice. Whether it was regret or luck, he never ran into Oda Mai again after leaving the surprise room. He didn't even meet some characters that he thought were a little difficult to deal with. Yulin speculated that this might be related to attention. The strength of the undead encountered in the next few missions plummeted. He seemed to have become a seated player and received special care. What's even more pity is that his charm value and luck value are so stuck that Yulin feels pain, and he has never been able to break through the lower limit. 24 hours passed. When Yulin once again easily defeated the mission leading to the 90th floor, Yulin hurriedly returned to the junction of the dead. The current rhythm makes Yulin feel that something is wrong. The seated players who are paying high attention seem to have been deliberately separated. Yulin bullies the cannon fodder undead in the mission. It is really meaningless and has nothing to mention. He rushes as soon as the mission is completed. Return to the land of the dead and check the settlement of the clearance. If he guessed correctly, this should be the last chance to obtain a tribute bonus. Return. Welcome back to the land of the dead. According to the performance in the task, you will add 9,873 points. The current total points are 262,312 points. You have reached the 90th floor. Performance evaluation of this task: A. Strength add 0.1, agility add 0.1, spirit add 0.0, will add 0.0, luck minus 0.0, charm minus 0.0. Get additional rating: boring kindness. Attention, 94.2%. Progress until the next mandatory mission, 32/100. It is recommended to wait patiently. Looking forward to your next performance. A little uncomfortable. He came and went in a hurry during the mission and did not kill many people. He was actually evaluated by the higher people as boring kindness. Is that what he calls mercy? Is it fun to step on ants? Yulin couldn't understand. He thought bullying cannon fodder was boring. Moreover, he has no shortage of points now. After the 80th floor, the map's danger level skyrockets, far beyond the fight between the undead. Instead of racking up points in the mission, it is safer to complete the mission and leave early. Yulin could not argue with any god now. She could only curse silently in her heart, staring at the light pillar until the bloody fire ignited in the light pillar dissipated. The information revealed during customs clearance and settlement is a bit interesting. Yulin pondered, thinking about the deep meaning hidden in the changes. The time limit until the next mandatory mission is finally no longer a boring 24-hour countdown. At this moment, there is also a countdown burning in the black light pillar, but the font inside has changed. 33/100. In just a moment, the progress bar jumped from 32 to 33. Does it mean the number of undead that can reach the 90th floor? In other words, it means that another undead has broken out of the siege and reached the 90th floor. After a moment, Yulin understood, her eyes narrowed, and her murderous intent was hidden deep inside. Sure enough, after the 90th floor, this bet begins. No, in the climax of the appetizer before this bet, 100 undead who can reach the 90th floor must be collected before the gamble can begin. Above level 90, the real cruel test begins. Above the 90th floor, extraordinary cannon fodder can no longer ascend to the next level. It was a Legendary level death battle arena. Call. Yilin took a long breath. Calm is restored again. Let's talk about income. The benefits from clearing the level this time were better than nothing. He had no choice but to do so. Even if he hadn't retrieved the 10th Apostle Core data fragment, in mission after mission, his mental attributes had increased significantly, reaching the limit of 30 points again, and he was stuck. A legendary lock. Yilin couldn't imagine what a mind-blowing new realm it would be once he broke through this layer of locks, because he couldn't break through. The charm and luck values are still 0, just plain 0. No way, stuck. This feeling of being stuck in front of a lock is really uncomfortable. Logically speaking, it should be difficult to break through the legendary level in mental attributes. But the two items of luck value and charm value most likely require some kind of opportunity. Opportunity? Yilin's eyes lit up. He first spent 100,000 points to redeem the last Apostle Core data fragment 10/10ths, and then came to the town of the dead. The atmosphere in the town is still eerie, with ghosts coming and going in a hurry. When Yilin wore a mask and stepped into the scent of the dead, there were several strange undead guests inside. Although Wululu's bartending has a certain chance of randomly improving a certain attribute while staying alive, at first this discovery made Wululu's business grow bigger and bigger, and she felt a little overwhelmed. But gradually, perhaps the undead couldn't stand the style of bartending, or felt that the price/performance ratio was not high. After the peak period, Wululu returned to its original deserted state. Your service seems to be far away. Yilin sat down at the corner of the bar. When Wululu was waiting for Ludanian to pretend to be unfamiliar with Yilin, she was silent and secretly pushed an envelope in front of Yilin. Wululu blinked her eyes and seemed to be asking, "Are you willing to become Wululu's vice captain?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1081. Wululu's face usually only has two eyes, no nose, mouth, and ears. But this no longer affected Yilin's ability to interpret Wululu's expression. It's sincere. Yilin didn't know what the other party liked about her. Perhaps it was his simplicity that attracted Wululu. It needs a simple and smart deputy captain, and he is just right for this position. But Wululu's invitation was like applying for a job in reality. This is a two-way selection process. Can't force it? Yilin looked at the letter. After more than 10 seconds of silence, Yilin reached out to the envelope. He gently pressed his fingers on the envelope. You are right, Wululu. Yilin smiled slightly. Perhaps the invitation in front of me is that as a small human being, I am the only one who has the possibility to evolve to high-latitude creatures, and even become a god. Opportunity. Moreover, this is equivalent to the backdoor you gave me. As long as I become your vice captain, all this cruelty and the upper-level game will have no connection with me. Wululu nodded. My dear friend, you are very smart. It spread its hands and said, you know me, Wululu is not just a captain. Oh, you don't know, managing a ship is really tiring. Wululu needs a cunning and shrewd assistant to help Wululu better manage the crew kept in captivity on the ship. Yilin was still smiling and did not comment on Wululu's words. He continued to say what he said, the undead are all people who have died once, including me. Perhaps because they have personally tasted the taste of death, the undead will be so eager to live. Wululu noticed that something was wrong with Yilin's tone. Her egg-shaped eyes flashed with a dark look, and she remained silent. I've had bonds with many people, which may seem ridiculous to you. I have no past, I can't even see my origins, I have no parents. Do you know this feeling? Normal human beings are all born from the mother's belly. But I didn't. I don't know when, I started to appear in the world like a ghost out of thin air. Because of this, I have nothing to do with some people. The bond created gradually became the proof that I had been alive. Yilin raised her head, looked at Wululu's surprised stewed eggs, and shook her head. You don't have to look at me like that. I also know that my current speech seems a little hypocritical. Maybe I will regret it as soon as I go out. Yilin slowly, little by little, pushed the letter in front of Wululu with great force. At least now, at least this moment, I don't regret it. The bar was empty. Just treat Yilin alone. And the God in front of you. Not everyone has the experience of having a heart-to-heart talk with God. Here I personally killed many of my former friends. Whether it's someone I know or someone I don't know. I killed them with my own hands. Again and again. The world is unfair. No matter they are living or dead, they should not encounter this. If the world is fair, they, and she, should be able to survive. The foam in the corners of Wululu's eyes grew more and more. It clearly felt a strong sadness from the plain tone of its best friend. So, I decided that no matter what I am about to experience, even if these words will be heard by above, haha, I guess I am not the only one who curses the gods. One day, I will tell the story of what we have suffered during our lifetime or after our death. All these, little by little, are returned to them doubled. If I abandon my current ship, abandon everything in the past, and take your ship, even if I become the vice captain, I will feel, as if I am no longer myself. Huh, you just treat me as me, just be hypocritical, Wululu. Do you know what hypocrisy is? It means the right choice made by smart and resourceful humans based on their judgment of the situation. In short, I decided to stay here. So, sorry, Wululu. Wululu's face turned from purple to black, then to pink, and finally blood-colored foam burst out of her eyeballs. Farewell, my dear friend. It was very sad, wiping away tears as it took out a wooden sign from the bottom of the table saying close today. No hurry, do you mind mixing me another drink? The last one. Yilin stretched out an index finger. Good. Her best friend Wululu skillfully prepared a cup of rest to let Yilin die happily. Don't. Yilin quickly stopped him. He rejected Wululu's invitation because he didn't really want to die. Yilin once again confirmed to Wululu that no matter what level of undead they were, they could only withstand one cup of Wululu's cocktail during the period between entering and leaving the mission. Yilin speculated based on past experience that this was very possible. It is related to the setting that every time the undead returns, the body will be automatically repaired and the backup restored. Since I can only have one drink. Yilin thought for a moment and told Wululu what she wanted. You sure? Wululu asked in surprise. This was the first time that an undead had made such an outrageous request to him. Of course, the other undead and Wululu had a purely transactional relationship, and they never thought about letting Wululu customize cocktails. Another reason is, it's expensive. You humans always have some strange hobbies and orientations. Wululu murmured, her hand speed exploded, and she prepared a cup of extremely grey wine in a blink of an eye. In the bone wine glass, the thing that could barely be called wine was not liquid in the conventional sense. It was like smoke and mist, and the grey gas condensed into a strange vortex in the wine glass. This cup is called the Calamity of the Abyss. This glass of wine actually had its own sound effects. Yilin stared at the glass of wine, and a sound like a harem wailing came from the glass. Yilin drank it all in one gulp. Ding! A crisp voice sounded in Yilin's ears. Finally! Breakthrough! Lower limit! Yilin's forehead hit the bar with a thud, and a red bud bulged on her forehead. He can be said to be in pain and happiness now. The taste of this glass of wine cannot be described in words. This pain is not physical, but mental. A strong sense of uneasiness came over him. He raised his head and looked around subconsciously. In an instant, he had a strong illusion that the whole world was preparing to murder him. Suppressing the discomfort caused by negative luck breaking the lock, Yilin paid the bill readily. In the weird expression of Wu Lulu, whose skin was cracked due to shock, Yilin handsomely transferred all the last hundreds of thousands in the account to Wu Lulu. Yilin left Wu Lulu with a chic back and waved, "Goodbye, friend. Return to the land of the dead." Yilin scrolled through the panel over and over again, looking at the luck value column, feeling inexplicably happy. Negative numbers, good negative numbers, wonderful negative numbers. In this way, the enhanced Echo of Doom, which can turn all skills into AoE without any brains, is finally unlocked. Because of this, Yilin officially bid farewell to Lucky and became the embodiment of bad luck. From now on, winning prizes, drawing cards, wishing wells, and all these things have nothing to do with him. But it doesn't matter, the strong never rely on luck, they all rely on strength, except Pangenji. Having said that, he had never seen Pangenji in the world of the dead. Could it be because, with Pangenji's luck, he will never die no matter which timeline he is in? Is this what you mean? Isn't that outrageous? After a trip to the town of the dead, the countdown in the black pillar of light jumped from 32 to 35. This process may be very slow, but there is no shortage of undead in the world of the undead. From the Tower of Death area server in Yuta, it is not as difficult as imagined to select a fighter among 100 elites. This is what Yilin thinks now. He still doesn't know that his situation at the moment is too small. Before entering the real 90th floor, Yilin did not leave the realm of the dead. He had been paying attention to the changes in the progress bar. As soon as the spiritual energy value was full, he would enter the hub and tap on the throne, scratching here and there. Make up for it? In fact, in the process of creating the infinite throne, Yilin vaguely figured out the method to enter a higher level. It's not as simple as truly completing the infinite throne, but, taking the path of infinity to the extreme. Death, war, famine, conquest, nightmare, shadow, paleness. The power dominated by them becomes their name itself. Does this mean that when a certain power reaches its end and is even enough to become a concept like existence, it can be promoted to a master? Of course, now that Yilin is thinking about this issue, it is still too far away for him. I do not know how long it has been. Progress bar, 96/100. Yilin sat quietly in front of the light pillar, waiting silently. Perhaps at the same moment, in different junctions of the dead, there are the other 96 undead standing at the top of all the undead pyramids, all with different moods, waiting for the moment when the progress bar fills up. With no one to accompany them and no one to talk to, at this moment, all the undead are lonely and helpless, waiting for the end of the fight for a long time. 97/100. The flames jumped. Yilin closed her eyes. Bits and pieces of the past came back in silence. I want to bring you back to my world. I'm going to take you to see everything I've been through. Walking the path I walked, feeling the wind blowing through me, and the sunshine that warmed me. Come with me to relieve the scenery in my memory. 2 cold tears fell from the corners of Yilin's tightly closed eyes. When a man sheds tears, he doesn't shed them easily, but they are not sad yet. But Yilin is not sad. This is hate. Regret for myself, and hatred for them. I'm sorry, everything is my fault. I promised Gilgamesh that I would bring them victory. I also promised you, I promised Brother Jian and the others that I would take you back to my world. I also promised Myrian that I would return to the real world alive with her. None of the things I promised or the promises I made came true. It was me who betrayed them. It's me, I'm too weak. The past and promises seemed to have turned into a heavy burden, weighing on Yilin's shoulders. Yilin found it difficult to breathe and out of breath. He opened his eyes again, his eyes were ruthless and cold, like iron. Countdown, 100/100. The dark beam of light spread from the center to all directions, including Yilin, who was sitting quietly. In the blink of an eye, Yilin disappeared. Rumble. After Yilin left, the barren land that Yilin had been lying in the open air for a long time quickly collapsed into the void, and was annihilated into grey dust. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1082. The dark stream of light forms a deep passage. Yilin walked through the dark stream of light and reached the end. A dark sky, no stars, no light. From the unreachable depths of the sky, there are chains extending down. At the end of the chains, narrow cages hung. The undead were curled up, hanging in the sky like humble prisoners. Arrive. When Yilin opened his eyes, he found that he was trapped in a cage. He did not panic, let alone panic, and immediately looked at the surrounding environment. All the undead are locked in cages, including Yilin. The narrow cage is hung in the sky, with no contact with the sky or the ground. Yilin lowered his head. Below the cage was a dark mist, which looked a bit like an abyss into which one would die if one fell into it. Looking up, there are 100 cages scattered sparsely. All the undead have their heads lowered in the cages, and their faces cannot be seen clearly. The far end of the sky. 4 lights appeared. Those 4 lights and shadows condensed into 4 chairs with different styles in the sky. The 4 seats are green, red, silver and black. The green seats were rotten and full of stench. The red seats were as red as blood and filled with murderous intent. There are countless ferocious weapons standing on the silver seats. Whoever sits on them will die. There seemed to be a dark mist lingering on the black seat, which was hazy. There was nothing on the 4 seats, but Yilin was just watching, and he could feel an indescribable sense of oppression on the 4 seats. All the undead raised their heads and looked at the empty seats. For a moment, everything was silent. They all felt the pressure from their souls from the 4 seats. Yilin gritted her teeth and suppressed the anger in her heart. He knew very well what those 4 seats represented. That is the source of all disasters. Lord of famine. Lord of war. Lord of conquest. Lord of death. The 4 masters are coming. Illusory shadows, some like humans, some like dogs, some like monsters, appeared one after another. Hazy light spots dotted the empty sky. In the blink of an eye, the undead seemed to be surrounded by countless people, and the place became a huge colosseum. The undead are all caged beasts in the colosseum, allowed to be amused and laughed at. Those are the gods who participated in the gambling. In the oppressive silence, 4 figures appeared on the 4 seats at the same time. They are like kings, their tall bodies are like inviolable gods, overlooking the tiny living beings. The 4 masters stretched out their hands at the same time, and 4 different styles of voices sounded in the ears of all the undead at the same time. The terrible pressure trapped all the undead in the cage. Yilin involuntarily knelt down, like a humble reptile, and the bones in her body made a sound like shattering. The small and humble dead. Among you, 4 final winners will be decided. You will receive the gift of resurrection and come back as an agent. You will become my knights and bring us victory. Sizzling. Yilin's ears were bleeding. It was a harsh and incomprehensible sound. But when the voice entered Yilin's mind, it was automatically translated into words he could understand. For gods and ants, language has never been a barrier to communication. This ends the prologue. The shadows of the 4 masters raised their heads and looked high. The voices of the 4 of them sounded again. Like lightning. Like thunder. Like a strong wind. Like a shower. Like a landslide. Like a tsunami. Their voices seemed to be a collection of all the disasters that puny humans can understand. Streamers of various colors intertwined in the empty sky. The light all over the sky solidified quickly, brick by brick, tree by grass. The 10 floors of land are pierced by a huge pillar from the center. The ancient city walls are moss-covered. The decayed stone pillars are covered with broken reliefs. Groups of headless knights patrol the city. The three-headed giant dog, with its whole body burning with raging fire, lay quietly on the steps and dozed off. Rotten knights covered in abscesses and tattered armor wandered in the forest garden. In the shocked eyes of the undead, an ancient and majestic aerial city appeared at the end of the stream of light, seeming to have traveled across time and space, suspended in the sky. Sizzling. In front of the eyes of the undead, as if the signal was poor, snowflakes poured out. After a moment, a line of text appeared in front of the eyes of the undead. The arrival of the myth Babylon will never fall. In a cage. Yilin tried hard to keep her breathing steady. He was trying to resist the absolute pressure from above. Only when he truly faced the existence of the Dominator level did he clearly understand that his mere legendary level was so insignificant in front of the Dominator. Even if he creates a prototype of his own throne, he can't compete with the Dominator. Green once commented that his throne was lacking in heat. Yes, it's too far. In the sky, mythical Babylon descends. Based on the information forcibly implanted in their minds, the undead gradually understood the meaning of the existence of this aerial city. This entire city is a myth that once disappeared. The myth has arrived. It has become the killing field they are about to enter. Many undead even speculated in their hearts that the sky garden in front of them, which is between illusion and reality, is most likely a level of props that they have never come into contact with, mythical level. Boom. Wow. 100 chains hung the cage in Babylon. The smell of decay came to my face. The cage opened, and Yilin climbed out of the cage with an expressionless face. His face was covered in blood. Not to mention facing a Dominator-level existence directly, just watching from the sidelines is a pain that small humans cannot bear. The power of the Lord is so terrifying, Yilin can see it from the existence of Green. I hope you won't trick me, Green. Walking in the hanging gardens of Babylon, Yilin subconsciously touched her chest. He just hopes now that the opportunity Green mentioned is here. The city of Babylon had 10 floors. These 10 floors are the final battlefield of the resurrection of the dead. The moment Yilin left the cage and landed on the ground, the corresponding rules had been instilled in Yilin's mind. At the top of Babylon, on the 10th level, there were 4 qualifications to become knights. Yilin and other undead must stand out in this killing field and reach the 10th floor to compete for the qualifications of Knights of the Apocalypse. But if Yilin guessed correctly, the qualifications for this Apocalypse Knight have already been determined. Yilin was not sure about the identities of the other 3 knights. But the War Knight must fall on Myrian. Only by predetermining the candidate for the knight can the gambling be controlled. Humph, a mere god. This place is more dangerous than Yilin imagined. If it were a serious fair competition, Yilin would not be afraid of anyone. But in order to ensure the direction of the bet, the future has been determined by the master, so the destined future must have a past that leads to that future. Etc. 4 knights? Correct. What the masters are talking about is the competition for the qualifications of the 4 knights. In other words, this is not just the undead in the Tower of Death server. Could it be said that the climax of the resurrection of the undead is the final battlefield where the hell of the 4 towers and the monsters who fight their way out of the encirclement of millions or even tens of millions of undead are brought together? Yilin's expression changed. If this is true, then in this mythical city of Babylon, he is about to face not only the appointed candidate to become the Death Knight, but also the candidates from the other 3 towers, the Apocalypse Knights. These 10 floors are obviously connected by the central passage. That huge pillar is like a tower, running through 10 floors. Yilin thought and quickly rushed towards the huge pillar. Let's make a bet first. Yilin made a decision. Paste. A 3-headed dog 10 meters tall was wandering in the ruins. When Yilin passed by, the 3-headed dog noticed Yilin's scent and pounced on the moving shadow on the ground. Boom. The three-headed dog dropped its claws, and the terrifying wind pressure tore the earth apart, causing pieces of ruins to collapse. Get out of the way. Yulin had no intention of getting entangled with the monster. She curled her fingers slightly, predicted the jumping trajectory of the three-headed dog, and activated her skills. Grasp of Annihilation. Invisible dotted lines were quickly sketched in front of Yulin's eyes. Under the influence of echoes of doom, Grasp of Annihilation no longer locks into a single area, but becomes a series of explosions. Luck is negative. Trigger the annihilation effect. Yulin secretly said okay. Unparalleled luck. The terrifying annihilation was launched silently. The three-headed dog didn't even have a chance to howl, and was wiped out and turned into dust in the continuous annihilation. Ground. It left behind a series of square potholes, which were extremely horrifying. Hiss. In the grass, a head was moving. There was a gasp of air. Yulin had long known that someone was hiding there, so he was not surprised. He smiled slightly and used the AoE enhanced version of Grasp of Annihilation to take action again. A dark shadow, wrapped in a grass skirt around its waist, fled in confusion. Meeks comes from the Tower of Famine. He always thought that he was the proud man of heaven. Even after death, he believed that he would be the one who could escape from the cruel resurrection of the dead alive. Not long ago, he received an invitation. The content of the invitation was the same as other invitations, inviting him to become a dependent of the Famine Knight and one of the 12 dead pools. Meeks refused. He thought he could become a Famine Knight. He comes from a future of despair, and this time, he decides to become the despair for others. The Dragon Slayer eventually becomes the evil dragon. The undead who died at the hands of the Apocalypse Knights long to become the Apocalypse Knights. This is undoubtedly a great irony. No, as soon as he arrived, he met a weak-looking Eastern man. He was good at sneaking, so he planned to hide in the grass and kill a competitor first. In the world of the undead, there is always nothing wrong with killing people. Who doesn't know that attention affects results? The higher the attention, the greater the chance of becoming a Knight of the Apocalypse. He has great confidence in himself. Until, the other party released a series of annihilation. Yulin releases her skills. The annihilation triggering probability of Grasp of Annihilation is inversely proportional to the luck attribute. The lower the luck, the easier it is to trigger. No, there was a familiar feeling, and patches of annihilation were flashing all the way up Meek's butt. Hateful. The continuous annihilation behind him looks like dark grapes from a distance. Wherever the grapes flashed by, not even an inch of soil was left. Hateful. Meeks roared angrily, turned around, and took out a clay doll. As he ran away, he quickly pinched the clay doll to create Yulin's masked face. Dalaban baban debudo by Luong. He recited a series of strange but very smooth spells. Buzz. A dark fog suddenly appeared above Yulin's head. The black mist was like maggots attached to bones. In the blink of an eye, it wrapped around Yulin and covered her. Yulin. His forehead suddenly moved.